It was coming up progressively on the Saturday, slowly and remorselessly, basically building up in the fields between us and the river Severn. It was obvious that this was going to be a flood, at least on a par with 1947, if not greater.
I would like to do an expression of what it was like when I saw the floods.
It is now a year on since the infamous flooding of Gloucestershire in July 2007.
As part of the anniversary, young people from across the county have created works of art depicting events and stories.
So that future generations will know what happened.
From primary school children,
And we've been making pictures to go to the museum and the window.
Who have designed a window.
to college students.
5.
And to college students.
We're HND Media Production at Gloucestershire College. Silence, please.
What are you doing here today?
Right, basically today we're doing some planning for the flooding project in Gloucestershire.
How's the project going?
It's in the final stages of pre-production and just going into production at the moment.
I'm going to kind of almost do a reenactment of kind of what I was doing on the day.
It started to rain on the Friday.
We have all made short films about the flooding.
And we've spoken to various people that were affected.
There's nowhere to pump to.
We have combined our films and the interviews to make what you're about to see.
It wasn't a bang, big, huge flood to begin with and that's it. It kind of just grew and became more and more of a news story and a crisis really over the whole weekend.
I was here at Radio Gloucestershire until around about midnight on the Friday night. We were taking calls from people who were stranded across the county. I was going out and about, interviewing people live.
And in an emergency, what we did in the floods is what we do. We stay on air, we do all we can to stay on air, and we do all we can to give everybody as much information as possible.
That first few days, it didn't really sink in the kind of enormity of what had happened. But then by the Monday, it did, and I was sent to Tewkesbury. So I proceeded to walk into Tewkesbury via this old railway line and was the first journalist in the centre of Tewkesbury, broadcasting live for Radio Gloucestershire, but also for Radio 5 Live, Radio 2, and just getting that feeling of what it was like because Tewkesbury was completely cut off.
Tewkesbury.
This is film 1.
We've been doing a documentary on the White Bear pub, which is in Tewkesbury. One bloke, when we went there, first time we went there, said he actually had to swim out the front window just to get out because it's so badly flooded.
Yes, this is our documentary on the floods that we made. Hope you enjoy it. Should we go and play it?
Tell me what.
Tewkesbury, a small town in the heart of Gloucestershire, was heavily affected. Many members of its community were forced to flee from their homes with nowhere to go. So many of them went to the safety of their local pubs, only to find that they were equally affected. One pub that was severely affected was the White Bear in Tewkesbury. However, many of the regulars were not going to let the weather stop them from going to their beloved local. I went to the White Bear to see what stories they had to tell.
You want to interview him?
The stories are that, we came out from home, which is 2 miles up the road.
This place, I've come here, 20 odd years.
When we hit the bottom of the road at Harwick Bank, it was like a river running through.
A river?
And, yeah, literally a river running through the road.
I lived in a mobile home up the alley.
And we came here and it was clear. And we thought, magic.
And it's just started coming up. I had a little poodle, which I had to keep afloat.
And decided to leave fairly early.
The fireman came and took us over to a neighbour's place.
We got home, thought no more of it. Next morning, we get a call from Jerry that the pub is totally flooded. And it happened 15 minutes after we left here.
He was one of the ones who was actually in there. And when it happened, and came up to here, like, you know.
I mean, when you actually went out the window.
Have you seen this? That's him swimming the bar. That's that one there. Right. A bit of lemon come floating past, you know. And he ate it for a laugh, you know, with a gin and tonic. He was really ill, wasn't he? Yeah. Really ill, he really was ill. He had 2 weeks up with hypothermia.
Hypothermia?
Yeah. different. It's worth it, though.
It's worth it.
It's like a sanctuary, this pub. And I'm from London. Nah, I don't want to leave now. This is my local. This is where I come. La 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 la.
You were quite upset, really. It really got.
Oh, upset now, yeah. Antibiotics, you name it.
Antidepressants. You got really down, didn't you?
Yeah,
You
as I say, you lose your home, you lose your dog, you lose your furniture, you get taken away.
Isolated from friends.
Yeah, you couldn't even come to the pub and talk about it.
It had to be basically completely rebuilt from the ground floor.
Deerhurst.
I'm old enough to know that I was about this high when the floods came up in 1947. In 2007, this last July, we had it up at about that much higher. And historically, over the years, we've had a flood bank all the way around the village, because the village is actually in a bit of a basin. Well, I'd just like to explain the flood defence that we've already got. It's been quite adequate before, but after 2007 we now realise that it has to be raised quite a bit more, probably by about 12 inches all the way round, with the floodgates, etc. raised as well. Once it got over the banks, it just flooded in from all sides. The whole of this yard here was full of water. It was probably 10 or 15 feet deep across there by the pond.
You just know exactly how high that is.
Yeah.
A lot of people have asked me, how did you find time to be photographing all of this? But I don't know, something inside me just said, I need a record of all of this. Unwittingly, what we were doing here was on a very much smaller scale. It's exactly what they were doing in the village of Deerhurst, which was really reinforcing and trying to make good and better the sort of flood defences that we've got. This picture was taken on the Saturday, and this is a relatively normal flood. We've had this level of flood before and absolutely been fine. And here we are moving furniture out. In here we had got 2 aluminium gates, but that wasn't enough. We put another gate, used the old-fashioned method of 2 pieces of plank. We put clay inside that. And actually it held incredibly well. We had water all around us, but we were actually very dry in the middle. And we were quite confident, weren't we, at one stage, that we'd beaten it.
They knew when we'd been flooded, I was told, although they were still working on the flood banks, they heard our extra pumps switch off.
But there's been a lot of criticism about the council's help and Environment Agency, a lot of criticism from a lot of people, and I think really it's a little bit unfair because it was a very exceptional flood.